Hey there, MennoNerds. This is Steve Kimes, and I'm here talking about the simplicity and sustainability thing. I'm really sorry I wasn't able to be there. Um, it really is frustrating because I had everything set. I knew I had the time, and then it turned out that a meeting that I thought was the week before turned out to be the next week, so I couldn't make it. But I'm going to give some perspectives now. I just want to say right now, just as a intro, it's really very comfortable not to be reduced to 4 minutes to try to say everything. I mean, I'm not going to, stretch this out or anything like that, but it's nice to take your time a little bit and just chat. I took my hat off to show that things are casual today. It's going to be mellow. So what I'm going to do is, instead of coming up with a big agenda, is I'm going to kind of incorporate it into the conversation that you had in this video. I'm just going to talk about the first section, the first part of the conversation that you guys had, which I really enjoyed. Really liked it. That was great. And so I'm just kind of going to respond to that, give you some of that, and then later on, maybe in a couple days or something, I'll send another video about the second part, and we'll do it that way. Okay, so great. So first of all, I just want to say, all three of you guys, Hilary, Paul, Micael, you guys were awesome. It was great. Oh, and whoever was moderating it, yeah, you were fine. It was great. Yeah, I'm sorry. Did, didn't get your name down. I mean, even though you were talking throughout the whole thing, I didn't get your name. Okay, anyway, so now that I've completely embarrassed myself, all right. First of all, definition when we're talking about simplicity. I really liked Hilary's idea of simplicity being having a focus on relationship instead of a focus on things. I thought that was really good. But I do want to add to that Jesus says that initially we do have to focus on things. And the reason we have to focus on things is because we're already focused on things. Let's see. I like books. So we have lots of things. We already have lots of things, and I've noticed that in the American culture that I grew up in, it is hard not to collect things. It's hard not to just gather things or have things drop out of the sky. When you have children, people give you things that you don't want. That you're never going to want. Things that you find that you have to hide and get rid of because you never want your children to see them as long as they live. My brother sent my son this noisy tank that had 5 buttons, and all 5 increased the amount of irritation with each one. My son never saw that. He had no idea that there was ever going to be a tank in our house. Anyway, so we get things, and so Jesus emphasizes that we have to do something with the things. So, for instance, he says you need to sell your possessions and give to the poor. Micael mentioned that passage. When Jesus said sell your possessions and give to the poor, he didn't just say it to the rich young ruler, although pretty much, or most of us in the West are the rich young ruler to some degree, but Jesus said it to all of his disciples in Luke 12:33. All of you disciples, sell your possessions and give to the poor. This is a basic act of simplicity. Get rid of your stuff. Get rid of your stuff. Just get it out of there. It's interesting that when Jesus told the rich young ruler, sell your possessions and give to the poor, then the disciples come up to Jesus and they say, well, Jesus, is that okay? Are we okay? Because we walked away from our possessions, but we didn't sell them and give to the poor. And Jesus told them, anybody who gives up their lives for me and for the sake of the gospel, they got it made. They're great. So the important thing is to put the things that we have behind us. but the other thing is, just in that whole idea, is to basically exchange the things that we have for relationship. So Jesus says in Luke 16, this is Luke 16:9, hardly ever mentioned. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard this verse before, but Jesus says, use the carnal wealth that you have, the evil, he says specifically, the evil wealth that you have, to make friends so that they might welcome you into eternal dwellings. It's kind of actually a riff on him selling, sell your possessions and give to the poor. But what he's saying is, use your possessions to help those that you know are going into the kingdom of God, those who are helping the poor, those who are poor themselves. But give to those people. Use what you have, whether it be your money or your possessions, use that to build those relationships. So that way, when those guys get into heaven, they'll say, oh yeah, come and stay at my place. That's the basic idea. And that's a fantastic, kind of a crazy idea. Simplify your life so that way you can improve other people's lives. Simplify your life so you can improve other people's lives. Sorry, I'm repeating because I'm a pastor and I guess that's what I do. And then the Apostle Paul, he was talking about that he was encouraging the church of Corinth to give to the needs in Jerusalem. And he says that he doesn't want everybody to give everything they have, so that way one will be poor and the other rich, but he wants them there to be equality. Once again, exchange the things that you have for relationship, not so that way you become impoverished, but just so that way there's everybody feels like everybody has shared. So it seems like it's clear in the New Testament that there's two things. Number one, simplicity means the giving up of our wealth, especially of our excess. We've got to get rid of it. We've got to move it on. And secondly, so when we talk about sustainability, it doesn't just mean helping the earth as a whole, but it means helping specifically the poor, people who are in need. If we don't help the poor, then we are not practicing biblical sustainability. If we don't help the poor, we may be living more simply because we're getting rid of things, but we're not fulfilling the whole package that Jesus had in mind. Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead in the discussion a little bit. I want to talk about how Micael talked about emphasis on the house church. Yay! I mean, this is a thing that I spend a lot of time on. Now, I manage for church property. I manage about 2.5 acres of property in the Portland area, and and when I first got that management, basically that property was used on Sunday. There were a couple meetings other days, and that was it. Pretty typical for most church buildings. But my ideal was that actually a church building should be busy 7 days a week, but primarily as a place where people who don't have a place to go, that they have a place to go. So we opened up our facility pretty much throughout the rest of the week, not on Sunday and not during the Bible studies, but throughout the rest of the week, for people who are poor, who didn't have a place to go, who needed a place to have shelter from the cold or from the heat, for people who needed a place to sleep because the police were harassing them, that for people who needed to have a place. So we should have places. We should have buildings. But we should have these buildings emphasized for people who are in need, rather than for people who already have a house and they've already got places to go. I love the emphasis on the house church because if we've already got buildings to meet in, why don't we meet there? Why do we need separate buildings to meet in? Well, I think a lot of times it's a status thing. Oh, look, our church is important, and so we have this special building that we can meet in, and we can leave empty throughout the rest of the week. I have to say, it disgusts me. It disgusts me to see people using just leaving buildings, so that way everybody leaving buildings empty when there are so many people in need that actually need that. I'm wondering if we should just all meet in houses, and then we can switch and turn our worship spaces into community centers for the elderly, for the homeless, for the poor, for distribution of food, for whatever it is that our community needs. Maybe for the mentally ill. I've seen day shelters for AIDS patients. This is what the church buildings ought to be about, instead of a worship space, which we could do in our homes. It just seems to make more sense to me. I don't know. That's my opinion, and you are welcome to be wrong. Okay, so next I want to talk about some of the stuff that you were talking about, anthropocentrism. Whatever. Okay. Anyway, I like the way that Paul said it. Paul had a really great phrase that I want to restate here. Our chosenness as image bearers, humanity's chosenness as image bearers, is chosenness to be stewards. I really like that statement, especially with the idea that we are stewards to sustain the earth, or to sustain all of creation. A lot of people look at the language in Genesis chapter 1, which talks about the reigning or the ruling of humanity over the earth as being the opportunity just to do whatever the heck you want with the earth. And that seems very strange to me. I mean, don't we have, aren't dictatorships bad things? Where you're taking advantage of the resources and the people that you have. And so if we as humanity are supposed to be rulers over creation, even if we use the term rulers, if we're going to be good rulers, doesn't that mean that we are there to help creation, to help sustain creation? I don't know. Anyway, so one thing I'd like to point out is in Psalm 104 is an alternative creation narrative in which God creates all the different parts of creation to work together. He basically makes all of creation as a biosystem, with each part dependent on the other. And humanity, God gives humanity rule in order to sustain that biosystem, that working together. And humanity is also dependent on the biosystem as well as every other part of creation. And when he talks about the biosystem, he's talking about the weather, the rocks and the mountains, all of it works together for each other's benefit. And so if we focus on humanity, we're going to end up destroying ourselves as well as all creation.